Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is SUKKAH Chav Gimel. We begin at the Mishnah, which is on Chav Beis, Amud Beis, towards the bottom. 7 lines from the bottom. It says the Mishnah, Oisa Sukkasai B'Roisha Agala. If one positions his sukkah on top of a wagon, Oy B'Roisha Sfina, or on top of a ship, Kishera, a sukkah is valid, and you can actually use this sukkah on Yom Tov. Says Rashi in the first wide line, although a sukkah on top of a wagon is portable, it's mobile, it's not positioned in place, it's okay. Or he positioned it sfina, on top of the high part of the ship. V'hayam gavoya ma'od, or there's a girsa v'hu gavoya ma'od. So the sukkah is positioned very high up. Vein harim makifin, and there are no mountains surrounding the area to protect it from the gusts of wind. V'ruach shayleta sham v'krasa. Lots of winds going on there, which might demolish that sukkah. Still, it's okay. Kshera, the diras arai sagiba, because even a temporary dwelling is sufficient when it comes to sukkah. So although it's on the wagon, which is moving around, on a ship where it's susceptible to gusts of winds, a sukkah is fine, and you can use it on Yom Tov. What's the chiddush here? It says Rashi, since in the seifa, in the next case, the Mishnah says you cannot use the sukkah on Yom Tov. Speaking if it's on an animal, it's on a tree. That's why Mishnah begins with the words of in contrast to the next case in the Mishnah. Continues the Mishnah. What about B'Roisha Ilan? He built a sukkah on top of a tree. Oyal Gabi Gomel, on top of a camel. Kshera, a sukkah is technically fine, but you can't use it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Ve'ein Eilim la b'Yom Tov, and the reason is because Chachamim disallowed use of a tree or an animal on Shabbos or Yom Tov, concerned that he might actually rip off a branch, rip something off the tree while he's there, or if he's using an animal, he might go ahead and rip off a branch from a tree to use it as to drive his animal. So this sukkah is technically kosher, but cannot be accessed on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Now the Mishnah will now stipulate which tree sukkah is problematic, which one is not. It's only a problem if it's primarily supported by that tree. But suppose it's supported by some man-made posts as well, which provide primary support for this sukkah, then it's not considered like you're actually accessing the tree and you can actually use the sukkah on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Shtein be'ilan. Suppose two sides of your sukkah are being supported by that tree, va'achas b'dei adam, and only one side being supported by a post, which was man-made. Or two sides of the sukkah are supported by man-made posts, and only one side leaning on the tree. Kshera, once again, the sukkah is kosher for weekday use, but ve'ein eilim la b'Yom Tov cannot be accessed on Yom Tov because it's deemed to be using a tree. Shalosh b'dei adam ba'achas b'ilan. However, if on three sides the sukkah is supported by man-made poles, v'achas b'ilan only on one side, leaning on the tree, kshera, now the sukkah is not only kosher for weekday use, v'oilan l'b'Yom Tov, it can be used on Shabbos and Yom Tov as well. Zakla, because this is the rule, kol she'inata le'ilan. If the sukkah is positioned in a manner where, if theoretically the tree would be removed, v'choyla lamed b'fnei atzman, the sukkah would still be self-sustainable, self-supported by the man-made posts, then we say kshera v'oilan l'b'Yom Tov. Let's go back to Rashi on Chav Beis Amud Beis. So it would be the sixth wide line here on the bottom. B'Roisha Ilan, so he put a sukkah on a tree. Tikein meishavi b'Roisha, v'asa sham mechitzas eschach. He supported the sukkah on the tree and added some walls and schach. Kshera l'chaylo shel moyed. It's good for weekday use. V'af, listen to the chiddush. V'af b'Yom Tov, even on Yom Tov, avav v'alala, although he's not meant to use this sukkah on Yom Tov, should he choose to go up there anyways and be over this at the Rabbanon, he's going to be yaitze the mitzvah minat Torah. ask the Mefarshim what happened to mitzvah haba ba'avera, which appears to apply even by Issa D'Rabbanan. We discussed Tevel D'Rabbanan and Gemara Pesachim elsewhere. Even when something is only Asa D'Rabbanan, should a person choose to go ahead to be Yaitze mitzvah minatur, we apply the concept of mitzvah ba'avera. A mitzvah which is done by way of an avera is not valid, even if the avera is only D'Rabbanan. So the Mefarshim answer here, it's different because it's not like the Tevel D'Rabbanan where the chayfetz is aser. It's not something inherently deficient within the chayfetz itself. Rather, it's more of a personal isser. Don't use a tree, don't use an animal on Shabbos or Yontif. So it's a personal restriction, and therefore, should he go ahead with it and be over that personal isser, he's still going to be yaitze because, again, the sukkah itself is not deficient. There's nothing wrong with the sukkah itself, even with the Rabbanon. Therefore, Rashi says he's yaitze dei chayvasei. Continues Rashi, ve'ein olam b'yontif. However, this sukkah should not be used on Yom Tov. The Gazaba Rabbanon. Rabbanon applied Gzeira. De'ein oilan be'ilan. Ve'ein mishtamshin by. What is that meant? To climb up on a tree or even use a tree on Shabbos or Yom Tov Shem Yitleish. He might go ahead and rip off a branch. The famous story with the stipler of Chaim Kanievsky's father, who was sent off to a labor camp in Siberia, and they had guard duty. So every hour they would switch the guards, and came his turn to do guard duty. It was Friday night, freezing cold winter, and they had this heavy fur coat which the guards would use during that hour. Otherwise it would be impossible to survive these sub-zero temperatures out there. The problem is they used to hang it on a tree. So the fellow used to finish his shift, he'd hang the coat on a tree, and the next fellow would come by and pick it off and use it for the next hour. Stipel, being mindful of this problem, I meant to use a tree on Shabbos, he specifically asked the fellow who's going to do guard duty before him to please just drop the coat on the floor so he doesn't have to actually use a tree. Of course, the fellow did not really follow instructions. He comes out and he sees the coat sitting on the tree. Koach nefesh mamish, he's freezed to death. He says, you know what, I'm not going to survive the hour like this, but at least let me just delay 5 minutes. 5 minutes I can make it. So I'll leave it on the tree, and in 5 minutes I'll take it off. After 5 minutes, he says, you know what? It passed pretty quickly. Let me do it another 5 minutes. 10 minutes, I'll manage. 10 minutes turn into 15 minutes, and he says, okay, a quarter of the hour. Let me just do a third of the hour. 20 minutes. To a third of the hour, we went to another 5 minutes. It's already half hour. Wow. He says, you know what? I'm mamish freezing to death. I'm an icicle. But another 5 minutes, I can make it. Another 5 minutes, it's already 55 minutes. He can barely, he's frozen to death. He says, you know what? I got to 55. I'm not going to take the thing off the tree. Another 5 minutes. Hours up, he ran back in. He was a piece of ice. In fact, they say it later on. He used to say that his hearing loss, he was hard of hearing, and he attributed it to that story. So another 5 minutes, until he got to the full hour. The Rebbeim in yeshivas use the story to inspire the kids. You're not going to do the whole thing necessarily, but just a little bit. 5 minutes you can handle. Take 5 minutes at a time. Look what happened. He survived the full hour. So you're not meant to use a tree on Shabbos, and he was Meisei Nefesh for this. Issa B'Drabbanan. Says the Mishnah, but not in all cases is the a tree sukkah a concern. It's only if it's primarily being supported by that tree, it needs it for its support. On two sides, the sukkah is being supported by the tree. Samach karkis sukkah ruba be'ilan. Mostly, the sukkah is being supported by the tree. And then he added some mechitzas around the sukkah. And only on one side is a sukkah being supported by a man-made post. What happened was he had a post going up from the floor below, a man-made post, and he supported the karka of the sukkah partially on that post, and the post continues up, and it continues upwards to complete the mechitza around the sukkah. So it's only partially being supported by a man-made post. That's problematic. Or even if on two sides the sukkah is being supported by a man-made post, but only on one side on the tree. In both cases, we say, if the tree would be removed, you would have a collapsed sukkah. It cannot support itself merely by the two man-made posts. It cannot be accessed on Yom Tov or Shabbos, because that in effect is considered using the tree. Says the Gemara on the third line from the top, Mani Masnisin. Who is the Mishnah? Whose Shita is being reflected in our Mishnah? A Mishnah which allows you to build your sukkah on a wagon or on a ship. Rabbi Akiva. The Sandia Oisa Sukkah Beresh Sfina. One builds a sukkah on top of his ship. And Taisus adds the words Beresh Ha'agala as well, because they go hand in hand. Agala is mobile, a Sfina is susceptible to the winds. Rabban Gamliel Poisel. He says it's possible. A sukkah needs to be a diras kvaz. We had back on Avzayinim and Beis. It has to be something permanent. It can't be sitting on a wagon which is moving around, nor on a ship where it's going to be susceptible to the elements. Rabbi Kiva Machsher, because he holds even a sukkah, even a diras arai is considered a sukkah. So if it's moving around on a wagon, a mobile sukkah is okay. And likewise, a sukkah on a ship, despite the fact that it's going to be exposed to the elements, it's still considered a temporary dwelling and is kosher. In fact, there was an incident involving Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Gamliel with a houseboat. Ma'aseh b'Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Kiva, there was an incident involving those two. Shayiboyim b'svina, who were traveling on a boat, and it was sukkahs. Mad Rabbi Kiva v'asa sukkah b'resh hasfina. Rabbi Kiva went ahead and he built a sukkah on the ship. What happened? Lamacha, the next day, Noshva Ruach Vakrata. A wind came along, a strong sea gust, and collapsed his sukkah. Amalai Rabbi Gamliel. So Rabbi Gamliel turns to Rabbi Akiva and he says, Akiva, where's your sukkah? He was making a point. Look, a sukkah which cannot withstand the sea winds, that's not a sukkah. So we see clearly that there's a machlekes between the two regarding a houseboat. Now, not in all cases, says the Gemara, is there a concern. Meaning, if the sukkah is strong enough to withstand your typical sea wind, then all agree that's okay, because in its current habitat, in its current environment, it can endure. Why wouldn't it be fine? Says Abaye, Amar Abaye, I'm going to present to you the machlekes. When does this discussion or this concern apply? Amar Abaye, the Kuliyam all agree, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Gamliel, when the sukkah cannot even withstand the dry land, wind on dry land, which is less stormy than the sea winds. If this house boat, this house sukkah cannot withstand a ruach mitzuya, a common wind found on land, loy klumi, then it's nothing at all. Rashi says, "Da'afilu diras arai lo yahavya." Right? The concept is that a sukkah structure has to withstand something, and the rule of thumb is it has to withstand the commonly found wind, the ruach mitzuya. Right? Otherwise, it's not a structure. The question is going to be whether we follow Ruach Mitzuya found on dry land, which is less ferocious than Ruach Mitzuya found on the sea, or do we follow these strong gusts of wind found at sea? We follow that Ruach Mitzuya. That's going to be the question here. But it says Abaye, if this sukkah sitting on his ship is so flimsily built that it can't even withstand a common dry land wind, Ruach Mitzuya de Abasha, then all agree it's possible. It's not even considered a temporary dwelling. That's pashut. On the other hand, says Abaye, but let's say it's strong enough to endure even an uncommon dry land wind, which Rashi says is equal to the common sea gusts of wind. That's just the way it is. The common sea gust is similar in nature to the uncommon dry land wind. So if he could withstand that, according to all shittas, even Ramulil will maintain that it's kosher because it could withstand the winds at sea as well. When then is there machlekes? This sukkah found on a ship can theoretically withstand the common ruach of yabasha, of dry land, but cannot endure the uncommon dry land wind, which equals in ferocity the sea winds. According to another gersa, it would be same thing. So this sukkah found on a ship can theoretically withstand the ruach mitzuya of yabasha, which isn't as strong and ferocious as your sea gusts of wind. Oh, now we have a shaila. Does it work? Because theoretically, on dry land, it would be considered an enduring structure. So for diras arai, that's enough. Theoretically, it can provide personal shelter. On the other hand, perhaps you have to follow the current location. This sukkah is at sea. And it has to withstand sea winds. So that's the machlekes. Rabbi Gamliel Savar, sukkah diras kva ba'inan. Sukkah needs to be a permanent dwelling and has to follow. It has to conform to its current environment and current location. Since it cannot withstand the common ruach of yam, it's not a sukkah. Why? See, Taisus back on the Chaf Aleph and Beis, I mentioned this the other day. Taisus says, really we have a kasha. Why would it work at all according to Rabbi Gamliel? You see, a sukkah on a agola doesn't work because it's a mobile sukkah. So why is a houseboat different? Taisus says there is a difference. Because if it's on a sfina, it's different. Shani sfina de'urcha b'hachi. A houseboat is a common thing. It's a houseboat. That's the way it's meant to be. The fact that it floats around does not we don't consider it a moving sukkah. It's like that's what it's meant to be. It's established. It's firmly established in place. A houseboat is meant to float around on water. It's not like a sukkah sitting on a wagon. So if it's on dry land, it's meant to be planted on the ground, not meant to be moved around on a wagon. But if it's sitting on a boat, that's a derech to make a houseboat. That's considered kvius. Oh, but Rabbi Gamliel says, look, I agree that a houseboat is fine, provided it's a houseboat. In order for it to be considered a proper structure on that boat, it has to withstand these sea elements, right? To give it a din of kavua, it's considered a proper structure at sea. It has to serve as a sea structure. It has to withstand the sea winds. Otherwise, says Rabbi Gamliel, you don't have a sukkah. So although theoretically it could withstand, the winds biyabasha, it's not enough to give it a din of diras kva at sea. What is Rabbi Kiva savar? Sukkah diras arai binan. A sukkah needs only to be a temporary dira. Since this sukkah can withstand the winds on dry land, so theoretically it can provide shelter. As far as a diras arai, that's enough. We view it as a personal place of shelter, although it's not an established structure at sea. It's not seaworthy. But since it can still serve b'yabasha, for sukkah it's enough. So we have three categories regarding a sukkah boat. If it cannot withstand even the ruach mitzuya of the yabasha, that's not a structure. If it can endure even the sea gusts of wind, according to all shittas, it's okay. Even if you need a diras kva, this is a diras kva. It's a houseboat. Problem is, in a case where it can theoretically endure the ruach of yabasha, but not the one in the yam. Says Rabbi Kiva, diras arai, it's enough. Says Rabbi Gamliel, diras kva means it has to conform to current conditions. It has to be considered a structure as per se. Well, in this case it doesn't. Continues the Gemara, oyal gabe gomel. So you put a sukkah on a camel. Mishnah says it works, but you shouldn't use it on Yom Tov. Masnisin mani Rabbi Meir. Apparently, our Mishnah is in line with Rabbi Meir's shita only. This Sanya, ha'isa sukkah al gabe behema. This fellow built a sukkah on a behema, which he can only access during weekdays, not on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Rabbi Meir Machshir. According to Rabbi Meir, it's fine. For Rabbi Yehuda Paisel, he says it's possible. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, why would it be possible? We learn from here. You meant to make a 7-day dwelling. 7 days of sukkahs are regarded like one unit, one residency. In which case, the sukkah is only good if it can serve consistently throughout all 7 days of Yom Tov, whether Shabbos, Chol Hamoed, or Yom Tov itself. Sukkah ru'i l'shiva, shema sukkah. Sukkah which is suitable for all 7 days, including Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's called a sukkah. Sukkah she'eni ru'i l'shiva, as opposed to a sukkah which is not right for all 7 days. For instance, an animal sukkah, you can't access it on Yom Tov itself and on Shabbos itself. Lo shema sukkah, it's not considered a sukkah. For Rabbi Meir, how does Rabbi Meir respond? He says, I agree in concept. It has to be a sukkah roi for all 7 days. Hanami midaraisa mechsa chazia. This sukkah perched on a camel, minat Torah, is perfectly fine. V'rabbanu de gazerba. It's only din the Rabbanan that prevents you from using it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So that won't diminish its status. Minat Torah, it's a full-fledged sukkah. And since it's only Xera de Rabbanan, don't use an animal because you might pull off a branch to drive the animal. It doesn't take away the sukkah status minat Torah. So what does Rabbi Yehuda do? How does he respond to this claim? So you may remember on the end of Masechah Sukkah, we had a similar Gemara regarding Shvuas HaEdus. So he approaches his friend, he says, look, I need you to help me, to testify on my behalf. And the fellow denies that he knows he has any information that might benefit his friend, and he imposes a Shvuas HaEdus to that effect. And the Gemara tells us, even if this fellow who accepted upon himself the oath actually can benefit his friend, he knows Edus. Problem is, he's pasal Edus midrabban. He's a gambler. In which case, even if this fellow should have approached Bezdin, they wouldn't have accepted him. They wouldn't have believed him. He's pasal Edus midrabban. We say he's potter from any shvos Edus penalty. Why? So although he's only pasal Edus midrabban, but practically, his testimony wouldn't provide any benefit because we wouldn't listen to him. So here we see that a din d'Rabbanan, a psum d'Rabbanan can exempt him even from a din ha'Torah. Here as well, says Rabbi Yehuda, you're right. The Isser to use an animal is only d'Rabbanan, but practically speaking, it's like a ruch mitzuya. The Rishonim say it's like a ruch mitzuya. We know that it's expected. Every sukkah has a Shabbos, has a Yom Tov, so we know in advance that for a portion of this Yom Tov you will not be able to access the sukkah. Be it minat Torah, be it midrabban, it's irrelevant. Practically speaking, the sukkah is not going to function throughout full 7 days. It's not called a sukkah ru'i l'shiva. So what does Rameya hold? So apparently Rameya holds that even though practically you can't access the sukkah, but there's nothing wrong with the sukkah per se. It's a personal restriction. I want to say, don't use an animal, don't climb a tree, because you might rip off a branch. It's a personal issa. It's not a deficiency within the chayfetz of the sukkah. Some Farshim say that Rabbi will hold that every issa d'Rabbanan is not an object-oriented issa. There's nothing wrong with the chayfetz itself. Nothing wrong with the sukkah. It's not a sukkah that cannot provide. You may not access that sukkah. You might rip off a branch. So Rabbi says, technically speaking, this sukkah is ro'i l'shiva. So although you yourself are restricted from using it, it doesn't take away from the sukkah itself. Technically, the sukkah is real l'shiva min ha'Torah, and it is kosher. So this is where the sukkah was planted on the animal itself. Actually, that's the way Rashi learns. It was put on the animal itself. Tosfos disagrees. He says if it would be on the animal itself, then you have another problem on your hands. It's a mobile sukkah, where according to Rabbi Yehuda, who needs diras kva, it wouldn't work to begin with. So Tosfos learns a bit differently. He says that actually the SUKKAH was positioned independent of the animal. So SUKKAH was supported by 4 poles on, which were positioned on the floor itself. So SUKKAH is not leaning on the animal, so it's not considered a mobile sukkah. The SUKKAH determines its mobility. The SUKKAH is not mobile. However, it was the floor of the sukkah which was supported by the animal. So he placed an animal beneath the floor. That's the case according to Tosfos. So you don't have the issue of mobility, but you have accessibility issue. We can use the sukkah on Yom Tov. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a sukkah Ru'ya L'Shiva, whereas Rabbi Meir says we still consider it a Ru'ya L'Shiva and it's kosher. Now we're going to have a third case of using a behema for your sukkah. In this case, nor neither the SUKKAH nor the floor is actually being supported by the behema. Rather, also a behema doifin sukkah. What happened was he used an animal as a wall. As a wall for the sukkah. He's missing a wall. He brought over an animal to fill the gap. So the SUKKAH and the floor fully supported by the uretz below. There's no concern of mobility or accessibility. It's a question of whether you can use an animal as a wall. Also, a behema doifin sukkah. Once again, we have a machlokes between a mayor who is poisel, because you cannot use an animal as a doifin. Rabbi the Machshir says perfectly fine. Rabbi Meir would say as follows: Kol davar sheyesh bo ruach chaim. Any living being cannot be used for a mechitza. Ein oisen oisei loy doifin l'sukkah. That's our case. V'loy lechi l'mavi, side post placed at the entranceway to the mavi to create that separation between the mavi and shusarabim. Cannot use an animal for that purpose. Nor v'loy pasim lebirois. Can't place an animal instead of the corner post placed around your be'er or shesarab to create that shesayachid impression. You can't use an animal for that. Nor can an animal be used as a cover, as a goyel, as a cover for a coffin, which has special halachas of tumah. You can't use an animal for that. Mishum, Rabbi Yosef Lili Amru. This was said in the name of Rabbi Yosef Lili. Another halacha, af ein koisvin olav giti nashim, nor can use an animal to write a get on it. My time of the Rabbi Meir, indeed, what is the time of Rabbi Meir? Does not allow use of a animal for the sukkah. We have 2 pshatim. Abayir Amar, Shema Thomas. Practically speaking, the animal might die, in which case you're going to lose your wall and miss out on your sukkah. Rab Zera Amar, Shema Tivrach, the animal might run away. So it's either dying or running away. Now, is there any difference in nafkamina between these 2 pshatim? Says it more like this: Bepil kosher. Suppose he used a large animal, an elephant, a tied elephant, for his sukkah. Kuli amale pligi. All agree. Abaye and Rab Zera agree. There's no concern. Even Rab Meir would allow use of this animal. Why? Because the inami mais, even if the pill would die on Yom Tov, yesh bin v'lasa yud. Its carcass still has a height of 10 tefachim. It's a huge animal, and the doifin will still be valid. And since he's tied up, there's no concern of escaping. So in this case, certainly there's no concerns whatsoever. Ki pligi bepil she'ena kosher. There's a discussion between Abaye, who gave us the reason of Shema Thomas, and Rav Zera, who's concerned about escaping. That discussion, that machlokes, would apply in a case of pil she'ena kosher. You have an untied elephant. According to Abaye, the concern is death. There's no concern here, because even after Misa, still occupy that same place. According to Reb Zera, whose concern is escaping, in this case, he's an untied pill, he might run away. Says the Gemara, but even according to Abaye, who's concerned about Misa, well, why would it be he concerned about escaping? So even in this case, we have a large animal, but if he's untied, sure, death won't pose a concern, but escaping will. Says more, you're right. If it's an untied elephant, all agree there is a concern. Why? Because he might run away. Let's say you have an ordinary sized behema, not an elephant, a regular animal, and he's tied up. According to Abaye, concern is misa, concern that he might die, in which case he'll drop down and you lose your mechitza. According to Reb Zera, concern is tivrach. Well, there's no concern because he is tied in place. What do you mean? According to Rabbi Zera, you're concerned about escaping. What about Misa? Why aren't you concerned about Misa as well? Misa leishchicha. It's not common that the animal will die from 1 minute to the next. So that's the conclusion. An animal which has been placed as a doifen, and the animal is tied in place. So according to Rabbi Zera, there's no concern because it's not going anywhere. According to Abaye, there's a concern because in addition to escaping, there's a concern of Misa, in which case this doifen will be diminished. Says the Gemara, how can you use this animal according to Rabbi Zera? Fine, he's tied up. But what about the gap between his legs, where there's no mechitza? We'll fill it up with some branches. Rashi says palm branches, dafna branches from a different type of tree. So fill up the gap, in which case it'll close up the mechitza. Fine, the animal won't die on him, but perhaps it's going to crouch. So he won't escape. He's tied up. He won't die. According to Rabbi Zera, he might crouch. Pretty common occurrence. In which case, he's going to diminish the height from 10 tefachim to less. The meticha ba'ashli milel was speaking that it was stretched up, it was held up, ba'ashli with ropes, milel from on top, it was held up in position. So you can't drop down through crouch. Oh, so now, let's go back to Abaye. According to Abaye, there's a concern about Misa. Well, if you tell me he's held up in position, even according to Abaye, isn't he tied up with ropes? Held up with ropes. So even if he's mace, his nevela will remain in place and you'll have your doifen. So what's the concern according to Abaye? There's a concern that perhaps at times he's going to use the animal in the following context. He'll have his SUKKAH, which is 10 tefachim high, being covered with this animal. Now the animal, which is only 7 and a bit high, will be positioned exactly within 3 to the SUKKAH. He's going to apply loved. He might position this animal within 3 tefachim of the SUKKAH. Hold it up in place. Everything's fine, but once it dies, it might shrink a bit. In which case the gap between Behema and SUKKAH will now increase from being less than 3 to 3 or more. You might not pay attention to that. Therefore, says Abaye, we're not meant to use this animal even though it's tied up and filled up and held up in place because of Misa, which might invalidate the doifen. Says Rashi on top. V'kiven the Maisa kafza. Once it dies, it's kafza misma me'etis ratter. It might shrink. V'aval ishloisha. Now your gap between behema and SUKKAH is 3 or more. But to lay love, there's no longer love. Then can doifen, and the doifen is not possible. It might not pay attention, might not be mindful of the need to fix it. It's not so visible. It's a slight difference, which you might not notice on Yom Tov. So in conclusion, we have Rabbi Yehuda whether you can use an animal for a doifen. Rabbi says no, Rabbi Yehuda says yes, and we have 2 pshatim in Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Zera says he might escape, but that doesn't apply to an animal which has been tied in place. Abaye says, in addition to escaping, there's a chashash of Misa, in which case you might shrivel and you might lose your lavod. The mechitza is puzzle. So according to this approach of Misa, which is Abaye's approach, Rabbi Meir is chayshish l'Misa, and Rabbi Yehuda is the one who allowed you to use the doifen for the sukkah, is not concerned about Sada and Misa. Says the Gemara, but this won't work with another Rabbi Yehuda, where we seem to see that their shittas have been reversed. Umi Amar Abaye, Rabbi Chayish l'Misa. Is that so that according to Abaye, Rabbi is chayish for Sada Misa, Rabbi Yehuda lo chayish, and Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned? Listen to this Mishnah, Latzanan. Bas Yisrael shnisas l'kohen. So she's a Kohen's wife, but she's really a Yisraeli. She's a Bas Yisrael. As long as she's married to the Kohen, she has truma privileges. She can eat truma. What happened was her husband took a trip. Her husband took a long trip, and she's unsure of whether he's still around, and that would allow her to eat truma. Or perhaps he already passed away, in which case she lost her truma eating privileges. So what's the halacha? Oicheles betruma becheskes shukaim. She may continue eating truma with the presumption that her husband is alive. Cheskas chai. Let's assume everything is good and well, and she's still married to him. So we're not concerned about sudden, unannounced death. V'ramina alone, we asked a kasha on this Mishnah from another Mishnah where we seem to see that there is a concern about sudden misa regarding a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen. Here is a gitich. He turns to his wife. He's concerned that, he's leaving on a trip. He's concerned that he might not make it back. He wants to spare his wife from any chalitza or yibum concerns. So they had no kids, and if he dies without kids, he'll have to have chalitza or yibum. So he turns to her and he says, look, harei a gitich. I'm giving you a get, which will be activated when? Not now. Shah achas koydem esasi. A short moment before I die. So whenever that happens, the moment before my death, the get will be activated and you'll be divorced and you won't have to have yibum as a result of the misa. So now she's constantly in a state of limbo. Right? Remember, she's a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen. Can she continue eating truma or not? Is this the moment before his death? In which case, I'm divorced and I can't eat truma. Asur lechel b'truma miyad. Says the Mishnah, she must stop eating truma right away. We're concerned about misa. Perhaps he'll be mace in a moment's time. In which case, this moment now is Isha Achas before his misa. When the get becomes activated, she's no longer roi to eat truma. Whereas in the previous Mishnah we learned, he's never concerned about misa. The person has a chazaka that'll live. So I have a stira. The answer is Ha Rabbi Meir, Mishnah number 1 is found Rabbi Meir is not concerned about sudden death. Ha Rabbi Yehuda Chayish Lamisa. Mishnah number 2 is following Rabbi Yehuda who's chayshish about sudden death. So this is the exact opposite of the discussion in Sukkah. Rabbi Meir says chayshish Lamisa of the animal. Don't use an animal as a doifen. And Rabbi Yehuda is not chayshish Lamisa. Okay, we're going to get to that teretz soon. But in any case, where was Abaye coming from? Where did Abaye find that Rabbi Meir is not chayshish l'misa? He's not concerned about misa, about things breaking on you, and Rabbi Yehuda is chayshish l'misa. This sign we find in the following Mishnah. So it's right before Shabbos, and he just purchased a large quantity of wine from the Kutim, whose gerus was questionable, and you have to go ahead and take off the trumas and masras. Not reliable, right? So you have to take off trumas and masras. And he doesn't have that opportunity right now. He doesn't have kalim. It's right before Shabbos. So we go ahead and we apply the brera solution. He can go ahead and instigate a process right now, verbally express the hafrash of trumas and masras, and this process will be pending further completion, further development. Later on, after Shabbos, he'll actually go ahead and separate trumas and masras. And that completion, that completed process will now be applied retroactively to the moment of Erev Shabbos when that process has begun. That's the concept of brera. It's going to be verified later on and applied retroactively. So how does he go about doing this? He says like this. The 2 lugim of the 100 lug that I have, which eventually I'm going to separate, harein truma. So right now I'm declaring that those lugin are truma. He doesn't know where they are, but eventually I'm going to separate them, and those lugin are going to be considered truma based on my current expression right now. Asora masarishan, 10 of the lugin are masarishan, tisa masasheni, 9 are masasheni, umeichel, v'shoysa miyad. Rashi learns meichel means he's mechal, he transferred the kedusha of the masasheni on money. That's something that can be done easily, do it at a moment's notice. Doesn't require any kalim, any effort. Let him do that right now, so that he doesn't rely on brera for the Maser Sheni. Do the chilul now, and once he did this whole declaration, v'shoysa miyad, he can drink immediately, relying and depending upon his further, upon completing the process further down the road after Shabbos. Divrei Meir. And we're not concerned that the wine will go missing throughout Shabbos, the container will crack and the wine will get lost. in which case he'll never come to complete the process. That would be problematic, really a problem, because the whole Truma and Maser is only chal based on further development, on future completion. Rabbi is not concerned about losing his wine. Let's assume everything will be safe and sound, and he'll come back and complete the Truma Maser process, which will be applied retroactively. However, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Oisrin, they don't allow this process to be implemented because they say, you know what? Something might happen in the interim which will prevent him from actually doing the breira. He might never come to it. The noid, the container, the leather container with this wine might be yibaka. We'll see soon that lashon. It might crack, and the wine might flow out. He might lose the whole supply here. In which case, he'll never complete the process. In which case, the Truma Maser was never activated. Which Rameh is not choshish for breakage. So this was Abaye's raya. The Rameh is not choshish for these types of unforeseen tragic events, breakage, misa. That's why the Isha can continue eating their Truma with confidence that her husband's still alive. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about her husband dying suddenly, choshish l'misa, is in line with his shita by the wine. He's concerned about sudden breakage. Okay, that works. But it's going to be a big stira now on our sugya and sukkah, where we find that Rameh says, don't use an animal for your sukkah. He's choshish l'misa. An animal might die on him. Rabbi Yehuda says, no problem, use an animal. We're not choshish for sudden death. So their opinions have been perfectly reversed. Eifach, says the Gemara. Indeed, let's switch things around. Rabbi Meir is the one who holds choshish l'misa. Rabbi Yehuda not choshish l'misa. And when Abaye sought to provide a solution to the stira between the two mishnahs, we had Mishnah number 1, Abbas Yisrael can continue eating truma with confidence. Mishnah number 2, she must stop eating truma right away. Abaye really answered it the other way than we figured. The first Mishnah, who's not concerned about sudden misa, is Rabbi Yehuda. And the second Mishnah, which seems to be concerned about sudden death, is Rabbi Meir. And indeed, this is very compatible with our sugi by sukkah. Rabbi Meir is choshish l'misa, Rabbi does not. Eifach, Rabbi Meir choshish l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda choshish l'misa. The Sanya, as we find by sukkah. Also, l'behem odefel l'sukkah. Use an animal for a sukkah. Rabbi Meir poisel, choshish l'misa. Rabbi Yehuda machsh, not choshish l'misa. Okay, so that works. So the two mishnahs of Abbas Yisrael, this is l'koin, eating truma, is fully compatible with our discussion by sukkah. Rabbi is choshish l'misa. Rabbi does not. Problem is, it's not in line with the mission of the wine. Rabbi Meir seems to be concerned about all kinds of unforeseen circumstances. Sorry, Rabbi Meir is not concerned about breakage, about losing your wine. He's not concerned about sudden breakage, sudden death. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who is concerned. It's exactly the opposite. It's their shittas in the reverse. Kasha de Rabbi ad Rabbi. Now we have a steer from one Rabbi on the other. By sukkah, he's concerned about misa of the balchai, and by the yain, he's not concerned about breakage. There's a big difference between the two. Misa shchicha, death is common. Everything dies eventually. So indeed, we're concerned about even a short-term death. Bekias hanoid l'shchicha. However, breakage of that container is not shachiach. Efshar de masale l'shomer. Go ahead and give it to a shomer to safeguard, to watch that noid. That mitigates any concerns. So in theory, he holds of misa being a concern, but not in the case of the wine, where it could be carefully watched and safeguarded. One more kasha. Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda. What about that? Rabbi Yehuda in sukkah is not concerned about misa of the animal. You can use it as a doifen. When it comes to wine, don't get involved, because you might lose the wine before he actually gets to complete the process. That says the Gemara. That's not the pshat. Taimud Rabbi Yehuda lav mishum dechayish l'b'kias noid. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow the breira to be implemented is not based on a concern of losing your wine. of Bekia, cracking of that noid, of that container, Elamishim de Leslie Brera. He doesn't hold of Brera to begin with. That's all. You can't begin a process now pending further completion. That's why it doesn't work. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler noid. Is that the pshat Rabbi Yehuda? It's not. It doesn't work on technical grounds because Brera is not a proper procedure, and it's not based on concerns of breakage and leakage. Take a look at the second part of that brayso. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shimon turn to Rabbi Meir and they say, "Look, how can you allow this process? Start truma now, pending further completion. Won't you agree that there's a concern if that noid will crack and the wine will leak out, in which case he won't be able to complete this truma process? It'll turn out this fellow is going to be over an issa. He'll have drunk tevel mafreya because he'll never actually complete the process." V'amalu shibaka, or may response, "But worry about it when it happens." Meaning, Michlal, it's pretty clear from that discussion, the Chayish Rabbi Yehuda noid, that what is Rabbi Yehuda's concern? Breakage, leakage. So how can you say otherwise? You tell me that Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about breakage, just as he's not concerned about sudden death. Rather, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow this process on halachic grounds. Brera is not something that you can do. It's pretty clear from the discussion that his concern is breakage. As was the Gemara, no, he was only referring to Rabbi Meir. His words were stated in reference to Rabbi Meir's position. Hasan Rabbi Yehuda the Ka'amalei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda simply turning to Rabbi Meir and speaking to him in his language. You know what? I don't allow this process at all because I don't hold of Brera. So it's off the table. I respect your opinion. You hold of Brera, fine. I can't challenge you. I can't object on those grounds. But what about on technical grounds? On practical grounds? What about if the noid cracks and the wine flows out? Why aren't you concerned about that? So Rabbi responds, you know what? We'll worry about it when it happens. Meaning, I'm not worried. You can place it in a safe place, have a shomer, or keep an eye on it. I'm not chayshish for breakage or leakage. Okay, so let's just summarize our sugya. We started with the behema being used for a doifen, for a doifenless sukkah. Rabbi Meir says no. Rabbi Yehuda says yes. According to Abaye's approach, Rabbi Meir is concerned about misa. Chayshin la misa. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about sudden death. We had two mishnahs discussing the topic of a Bas Yisrael who was married to a Kohen and her truma eating privileges. Mishnah 1, she could continue eating truma confidently, assuming that her husband's still alive. So we're not chayshish l'misa. That's Rabbi Yehuda's shita. In the second Mishnah, we have a concern that maybe there's going to be misa. She has to stop eating truma immediately. That is shita. That's Rabbi Meir. So that works. Rabbi Meir is chayshish l'misa. Rabbi Yehuda is not. What about the next discussion regarding being mafish truma de breder? Rabbi Meir says, go ahead and do it. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can't do it. And the Gemara responds by saying that Rabbi Meir holds but not for begias anoid. Not concerned that this leather container will crack and the wine will leak out. It's not shchiach. Give it to a shomer. We'll keep an eye on it. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow the process, but not because it's chayshish for some breakage or leakage, rather on halachic grounds, less lebrera, and therefore this process doesn't work at all. Okay, let's do a quick chazar in today's daf. We start with the Mishnah. A sukkah on top of an agola or an asfina is kosher and in fact can be used on Yom Tov itself. However, the Gemara actually tells us it's totally on the shites. Rabbi Kiva is the one who says it's kosher. Diras arai is sufficient, whereas Rabbi Gamliel holds diras kvabinam. So a sukkah on a mobile, on an agola is no good, and likewise a sukkah on a sfina, which the Gemara says is speaking where it cannot withstand the common gust of wind found at sea. So it's not seaworthy, and therefore, according to Ramglil, it's possible, it's not considered a diras kva. It doesn't conform to its current location and environment. We discussed a case where he put his sukkah on the animal. So the karka of the sukkah was on the animal. Rameir says it's fine. Rabbi Yehuda says it's possible because it needs to be a sukkah ru'uya li-shiva. And in this case, since the sukkah cannot be accessed on Shabbos or Yom Tov, you're not meant to use an animal on Shabbos or Yom Tov, so it's not a 7-day dwelling, and it's possible for sukkah use. Taisus learns that the sukkah was not actually placed on the animal itself, because in that case it would be a mobile sukkah, in which case, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's nothing to talk about. It's not a diras kva. Rather, Taisus says, was speaking that he actually placed the schach on separate independent supports. They're not going anywhere. So they're not mobile, they're kavua, but the karka of the sukkah was placed on the animal, so it's an accessibility issue, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, since it's not right for all 7 days, it's puzzle. Regarding using a behema simply as a doifen for your sukkah, Rameir says no, Rabbi Yehuda says yes. We have two pshat in Rameir. Either we had Reb Zera because of escaping, which will not apply in the following case. If you have a behema, which is kshura, right, a tied up animal, it's not going anywhere, and you filled up the gaps between his legs with branches, you have a solid machitza, and he's being held up, suspended with ropes, he's not going anywhere. And when chayshish for misa, so you can use it according to Rameir, according to Reb Zera. In this case, you can use it even according to Rameir. Whereas according to Abai, there's a chashash of misa in addition to escaping. In this case, as the Gemara, perhaps he's going to position his animal within 3 tefachim to the schach, and once there's misa, it's going to shrivel, and you're going to lose your machitza. Therefore, Abai says even in this case, Rameir would not allow using a behem l'doifen. Now, regarding the pshat of the machlekes in Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara concludes Rameir is chayshish l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda is not. That explains our machlekes regarding using a doifen for a sukkah, behem as a doifen. Regarding the Bas Yisrael, who would like to continue eating her truma, the Mishnah 1, which says you can continue, that's Rabbi Yehuda, not chayshish l'misa. Mishnah 2 is Rameir is chayshish l'misa. Then another machlekes regarding using the breira process for truma masters regarding that wine purchased from Kutim. The Gemara really says it's unrelated. Over there, Rameir allows, because not chayshish that the noid will crack up and you lose your wine. So not chayshish for that. And breira is a legal procedure which can be applied in this case. Rabbi Yehuda holds, no, I don't hold of breira, therefore you cannot apply this procedure. And in addition to that, Rabbi Yehuda actually objected on other grounds as well. He says, look, Rameir, you hold of breira, but in this case, what would be chayshish for practical concerns that the wine will not be in existence any longer after Shabbos? Rameir responds, don't worry about it, look, sheyibaka. We'll worry about it when it happens, meaning he'll make sure to keep it under wraps, keep it under guard, safe and secure, and there's no concern. Kol tov to you, and atzlacha rava.